mentally incompetent, or in competition. Welcome back. I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and this is the Family Roles series. Today's video is the final installment in the enabler arc, and it's the one most survivors hope they'll never need, because it's about acceptance. Not of abuse, not of dysfunction, but of limits. This is the episode for when you've tried everything, when you've explained, cried, sent articles, written letters, and begged them to see. This is for the moment you realize the enabler you love may never leave the role, not because they're incapable, but because they don't want to. Let's begin with the myth of future insight. One of the deepest hopes scapegoats carry is that the enabler will one day wake up. That some final piece of evidence, some breakthrough conversation, or some rock-bottom moment will shake them free from their allegiance to the narcissist and the system. You replay conversations in your mind, wondering if you had said it better, explained it slower, or waited for the right time, maybe they would have seen the truth. But here's the painful truth most survivors eventually learn. The enabler already saw enough, and they chose not to act. The enabler's refusal to change isn't always rooted in ignorance. Often, it's a choice made over and over again to prioritize emotional safety over moral clarity. The system gives them a role: stay calm, smooth things over, keep the peace. And the longer they've played that role, the more their identity fuses with it. Admitting the truth that they enabled harm, betrayed trust, or protected an abuser would collapse their entire self-image. So instead of changing, they double down. They minimize. They spiritualize. They rationalize. And most heartbreakingly, they blame you for making it hard. When you confront an enabler who refuses to change, something strange often happens. Instead of meeting your pain with reflection or accountability, they react with defensiveness. They say things like, "You're being too harsh," or "You don't understand how hard it's been for me." Suddenly, the conversation is no longer about the harm you endured, but about how uncomfortable they feel being asked to witness it. They claim to be victims of your truth-telling. They say your standards are unrealistic, that you expect perfection, that you're the one unwilling to let go. This reversal isn't random, it's protection. Not of you, of the system. Because enablers who won't change are deeply committed to the family narrative. Not because it's healthy, but because it's stable. In their mind, disruption equals danger. If the scapegoat is telling the truth, then the whole family illusion collapses. And if it collapses, the enabler has to feel everything they've avoided for decades: guilt, shame, complicity, fear. So instead, they suppress the truth teller. Not by overt attack, but by emotional invalidation. They'll tell you, "I just want to move on. Why dig all this up again?" Or, "That was a long time ago." And they'll believe it. Because to them, your healing is a threat to their peace. Nowhere is this more obvious than when the attack becomes personal. And I want to share a piece of my own story here because what I'm describing isn't theoretical. It's lived. It's scarred. And it's survived. In my family, I was bullied for my weight. My mother, who was supposed to be the protector, the nurturer, the one who would see me through the chaos of the world instead, became the source of that chaos. She would call me fat. She would oink at me at the dinner table, and no one stopped her. No one interrupted. Not even the people who claimed to love me. I stopped eating. I became anorexic. I became invisible, hoping that maybe if there was less of me, there would be less to criticize. But when my weight was no longer something she could attack, she found something else. My skin, my clothes, my laugh, my joy. Eventually, I became beautiful. Not for her, but for myself. I became the kind of woman who turned heads in a room. And you'd think the attacks would stop. But they didn't. They just changed form. Because even though she couldn't pick on how I looked anymore, there was still one thing about me that she hated more than anything else: my mind. I've always been a bookworm, the kind of girl who read hundreds of books a year, the kind of child who wanted to understand everything, who questioned, who thought. And that didn't go away with age. In fact, it became the foundation of my career. I became an author. 11 books, published, admired, respected. And what did my mother do when she couldn't pick on my looks anymore? She started telling people I was mentally ill. She began whispering lies, spreading rumors, telling others that I was unstable, not to be trusted. Why? Because I was doing what she never could. I was building something real with my life. I was using my mind as my gift. And that scared her. Because when someone refuses to grow, they will attack the growth they see in you. They will target the very thing that elevates you because your strength highlights their refusal. And this woman, who didn't work, who had no income, who spent her days watching Netflix and drinking, somehow believed she had the right to question my mental fitness while I was out in the world. Being paid to think, being celebrated for my insight, being followed by hundreds of thousands online who saw what she refused to. That's the absurdity of narcissistic attacks. They aren't based in reality. They're designed to provoke, to confuse, to distort. When there's nothing left to criticize, they will invent something. And often, they go for your mind because that's where your power is. That's the weapon they think they can dull. But the truth is, every time they try, they only reveal more about themselves. So what did I do? I kept going. I published more books. I built a platform. I stood in my truth. And eventually, her words became background noise echoes from a person whose opinion no longer mattered. Because that's what happens when you stop performing for the system. You stop needing validation from people who were never capable of giving it. This story isn't just mine. It's universal. The specifics change, but the mechanics are the same. Families who attack your intelligence, your competence, your purpose, they're not doing it because you're failing. They're doing it because you're succeeding without their permission. And when you stop needing them to believe in you, they panic. Because their control relied on your dependence. So let this be your permission. To laugh, to walk away, to thrive louder. Their words only hold power if you shrink to fit them, and you, dear survivor, are already too big for their version of you. Letting go is not giving up. It's honoring reality. It's choosing peace over performance. And it's making space for the kind of love that doesn't require you to split yourself into pieces to be accepted. Because your healing deserves witnesses who can hold it. Because your truth deserves mirrors, not smoke. Because your spirit deserves rest, not constant defense. And because some people can only meet you in a system you've outgrown. That's not your failure. That's your freedom. And now finally, it's time to claim it. Hi, I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and what you just watched is part of my signature program, the Chosen One series inside School of Soul. This series is not just a course, it's a blueprint for those who know they were different from the start. The black sheep, the scapegoat, the truth teller, the cycle breaker. Inside, you'll discover the family roles playbook, the golden child, the scapegoat, the enabler, the lost child, and how to finally step out of the part you were cast in without consent. How the black sheep becomes the goat, turning rejection into radical transformation in leadership. How to break generational curses and rewrite ancestral contracts so the pain stops with you. And how to recognize and escape modern forms of spiritual and technological targeting, from gang stalking to synthetic synchronicity. This isn't just about survival. It's about awakening, about reclaiming your voice, your lineage, and your destiny as one of the chosen ones. Click the link below to access the full series now, because the role ends the moment you decide it does, and the real script begins with you.